It's been really cool to see what we can do with Unity without any coding at all, but there comes a point where you're going to need to add some scripting, some JavaScript or C# or Boo. We're only going to cover JavaScript right now, but I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of scripting in Unity to make some things happen that otherwise you couldn't do. First thing we're going to do is go down into our Assets folder, and then I'm going to right click in here and choose Create Folder, and we're going to call this Scripts. And then I'm going to go inside that and right click, choose Create JavaScript. And the name we're going to give this is Coin Stuff. Okay, because we're going to be doing something with a coin here. In fact, let's go ahead and get a coin up on the screen. I'm going to go down into Assets and then Sprites and use the coin sprite here. Drag it up into the scene. Now it's not showing right now, so I'm going to go over to the inspector in the sprite renderer component and use the sorting layer and pop it up to the front. So now we have a coin on the scene, but if let's see, I think right there is where the ball will hit it. If we run this, nothing's going to happen. The ball is going to pass right through it. Okay, that's because this coin has no physics attached to it. So we're going to go back over to the inspector with the coin selected, add a component, go to Physics 2D, and now, if you remember from one of the previous videos, for two things to collide, they both have to have a collider component on them, but only one of them has to have a rigid body. We know that the beach ball in this case has a rigid body, so we can skip that for the coin and just go with a collider. And of course, since the coin is round, the circle collider is what makes sense here. And I'm going to change the radius on this thing. So I'm going to hit Edit Collider, and then go right over here because I want to make this basically about the size of the coin. So I'm just going to go in a little bit. That's pretty good. And turn off editing. And now when we run this, you'll see that the ball and the coin actually can affect each other, but that's not quite what we want. We don't want it to bounce off of it like that. We want it to pass through, but we want there to be some notice. Well, there's a cool thing here. Back over the inspector with the coin selected, you'll see this option here in Circle Collider 2D is trigger. If we check that, that allows the collider to still be there, but the ball will actually pass through it. But now it passes through it like before when there was nothing attached to the coin, but there's a big difference here. The big difference is when that passes through there, there is some interaction in the background, but because the coin is set as a trigger, the physics, they don't collide, but they do trigger. Now, let me jump over here to Safari, and this is the Unity documentation, and here if we look at Collider 2D, and this is for Box Collider, Circle Collider, and Polygon Collider, there's variables, functions, and messages. This is what we're interested in here. So there are messages that happen on collision enter, but what we want to write down here on trigger enter, because that is set as an is trigger, and it says sent when another object enters a trigger collider attached to this object. So if we go in and look at that, we can see it's a very simple piece of code to be able to listen for that message. So let's jump back over to Unity, go into the scripts folder, and there is coin stuff. And I'm going to double click it, and when that happens, this program called MonoDevelop is going to automatically launch. And MonoDevelop was installed when you installed Unity. Here it comes up, and this is a code editor. There's already some code in place for you, although we are going to get rid of those right there. Leave that first line up there. But then we're going to create a new function, and it's called onTriggerEnter2D. And watch out for case here, because if you do it like that, it will not work. So case is really important in this kind of thing. And now we need a variable name, and this is going to be the name of the other object. So we're going to attach this to the coin. When something hits it, that other object is what we want to know. So we're just going to call this other, and we're going to set it as a collider 2D. Okay, so this tells us that this function is called onTriggerEnter2D, and one variable is being passed into it, or one parameter, and it's going to be called other, and it's of type collider 2D. So if we attach this script to the coin, every time something hits that coin, well, it won't hit it because we've got the isTrigger thing set, but every time something overlaps that coin, this function here will be fired. So let's go ahead and do something here. Debug.log, open parenthesis, open quote, And we'll just say triggered. So this is just a message. Debug log is cool because it allows you to send a message to the console in Unity. I'll show you where that is in a moment. So I'm going to save this and switch back over to Unity. And we're going to attach the coin stuff JavaScript script to this coin. So I'm going to select the coin over here and then just drag this over into the inspector here and drop it. And now we have this script attached to the coin. Now before we run it, it's going to send a message to the console. It will actually also send the message right down here to this bottom area of Unity. But we really want to see it in the console because that's easier to see. And I've got the console right here. It's in one of the tabs next to project. But I'm going to close this. I'm right-clicking on it, choosing Close tab. If you don't have the console up and running in your version of Unity, here's where to find it. Go up to the Window menu and choose Console. It's going to show up like this. And if you want it just floating free, that's fine. Maybe you have two monitors. You can put the console on another monitor or something like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it by this tab right here and then move it down over next here to Project and drop it. So it kind of docks here with this pane right here. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and you'll see as soon as the beach ball passes the coin that it'll say triggered over here in the console. So let's get that a shot and see what's going to happen. And there we go, triggered. All right, so we know that something happened at exactly that point when they overlapped, which is cool, but we don't want to just put a message there. If the beach ball is supposed to be picking up the coin, we want the coin to vanish. So we'll get into that in the next video.